What do you do if an earthquake hits? Hide under a doorway? Wrong, that's even more dangerous. How about jumping into a hot bath if you're suffering from hypothermia? Nope, that too could be deadly. I'm Mike with List 25, and we're always looking out for you here, so that's why we've busted 25 survival myths that might just save your life one day. 25. Moving frostbitten limbs helps circulation. Frostbite is one of the biggest risks of exposing yourself to extreme cold temperatures. While mild frostbite can improve after warming up, serious frostbite is permanent. So listen up, because there is a ton of bad advice floating around out there about it. First of all, no. Alcohol is not the best cure, so it doesn't give you an excuse to get hammered. But more importantly, frostbite is nothing like that pins and needles feeling. You should not be moving around if you suspect frostbite. The affected tissue in your toe, leg, or hand is full of very sensitive tissue. Putting any more pressure on it can make it much worse. 24. Eating raw meat is safe. This topic is a little contentious these days. There's a growing trend of people on TikTok eating raw meat, like beef or chicken, and claiming it's safe. So why isn't raw meat recommended in the first place? Now, it's because of what we know about dangerous contaminants like parasites, bacteria, and toxins, things like salmonella. When meat is heated up enough during cooking, it kills these pathogens. The same goes for most raw, unprocessed meat. That doesn't mean raw meat will always make you sick, but if you want to minimize your chances of food poisoning, it's better to play it safe and heat it before you eat it. 23. Let a drowsy person sleep in the cold. Cold temperatures can make us feel tired or drowsy. While that often means snuggling up with a warm blanket, this can be deadly. If someone falls asleep when their body is too cold, they can get hypothermia, when their internal body temperature drops under 95 degrees Fahrenheit and goes into crisis. Drowsiness and sleepiness can be the first signs. Keep in mind that older people's bodies lose heat much faster than younger people, so if your grandma looks a little cold and starts to get drowsy, confused, or slurring her speech, call for help. 22. Drinking seawater is fine in small amounts. Being marooned in the middle of the ocean is the thing of nightmares, and unless you've watched survival shows like Man vs. Wild or Survivor Man, you might think that it's alright to drink a little bit of seawater. After all, the water's still water, right? Wrong. Yes, it is still water, but not the drinkable kind, even in small amounts. There is way too much salt in seawater. For each liter, there are around 35 grams of the stuff. The problem comes when the water reaches our kidneys, which filter out toxins and excess salt. It's simply not designed to handle the amount of salt in seawater. To excrete it all, the body urinates much more than it takes in. Then, it doesn't take long for you to become dehydrated and soon die. The worst part? You die while feeling even thirstier. Now that's a nightmare. 21. Tree bark is a reliable food source. Are you stuck in a jungle? No problem. Okay, well, some problems, but food isn't one of them if you know where to look. Turns out that tree bark can be a fairly nutritious source of food, with around 100 calories per 100 grams. In fact, in times of extreme famine, many people in Northern Europe made tree bark to survive. But, and there is a big but, not all tree bark is edible. Some species like eucalyptus trees and wild cherry are actually poisonous. Come on, wild cherry? Why do they make it sound so delicious? 20. Building a fire in a cave is safe. Millions of years ago, our ancestors survived in simple structures, or caves, hence the name, cavemen. We often imagine these people rugged up in fur, sitting around a campfire for warmth. But before you go lighting a fire in a cave, there are a few risks to consider. Depending on the size, a fire can eat up all the oxygen and also fill it with smoke, causing breathing problems. That's not all though. Excessive heat can also cause the walls of the cave to crack and crumble. Sounds like being a caveman wasn't as easy as we thought. 19. Drinking raw blood is healthy. Okay, I'm not going to ask any questions, but on the off chance that you were considering drinking blood, don't. Unless you're a vampire, there are a ton of health problems that you expose yourself to. The first and biggest is disease. Just like the food bacteria I talked about earlier, blood can carry a range of diseases like hepatitis and HIV. Second of all, blood is super high in iron, which in high doses can be toxic, causing the liver to shut down and fluid to build up in the lungs. And finally, It's just weird. 18. Don't move in quicksand. You've seen it in the movies. The dramatic moment where a character is stuck in quicksand, panics, moves around, and sinks deeper. Usually someone tells them not to move, but what are you supposed to do then? Well, actually, you can move. I mean, how else would you get out? The trick is to sway slowly backward and forward. This loosens the quicksand by allowing water to escape. No sudden movements, just wiggling very carefully. I'm sure that's easier said than done when you feel like you're trapped and sinking, but that's the technique. 17. Lightning can electrocute after it strikes. Getting struck by lightning is pretty unlikely to happen to someone around you. But then again, people do win the lottery, so it's best to know what to do. One of the biggest myths is that you can't touch someone who's been struck by lightning. It's easy to see where this comes from, but electricity cannot actually be stored in the body, so there's no risk of being electrocuted at all. Instead, try to get them under cover to safety and perform CPR. 6. Alcohol is best for cleaning out a wound. Alcohol is a good antibacterial, right? Well, in some cases, yes, but for a fresh wound, alcohol, or a disinfectant like hydrogen peroxide, are not the best things to clean it out. Both of these can cause damage to the underlying tissue and make it take even longer to recover. The recommended treatment is good old water and soap. Cold water for a few minutes to flush out any of the dirt or bacteria, then some mild soap to gently clean it. 15. Space blankets warm you up. If paramedics are wrapping you up in a space blanket, then something has gone horribly wrong. These sheets are made of heat-reflective plastic, or metal, and were first created by NASA. Marathon runners and endurance athletes can use them to stop their body temperature from fluctuating too wildly, but they only work by trapping the heat your body has already generated. It won't provide any extra heat. So if your internal body temperature is dropping, you still need to get to a warmer place. 14. Keep your car running in a snowstorm. Getting stuck in the middle of a snowstorm can be a terrifying experience, but there are a few things you can do from inside your car to stop it from snowballing into a deadly one. Staying warm is essential, but you shouldn't keep your engine running the entire time. Instead, switch it on for 10 minutes each hour. Why? Well, because if your tailpipe gets blocked by snow, everyone in the car can be poisoned by carbon monoxide. In general, try not to leave your car at all. It only takes a few seconds to become disoriented and lose track of where you are. However, if you need to check that the exhaust pipe is clear, do it carefully. I guess that's another advantage for electric cars. 13. Baby rattlesnakes are more dangerous than adults. How could tiny babies be dangerous to anyone? Well, for rattlesnakes, people often think that the babies are the ones to really watch out for. According to this fact, the little ones don't know how to regulate the amount of venom they inject. Thankfully, this idea is purely fiction. The bigger the snake, the bigger the venom sac. And unsurprisingly, the more dangerous they are. That doesn't mean the babies are harmless, but if you give them space and don't rock the cradle, you shouldn't be in any danger. But you know what else could put you in danger? Not liking, commenting, sharing, or subscribing? Okay, not really, but still, you totally should. I know, us YouTubers say it a lot, but it truly helps the channels grow so that we can keep bringing you this amazing content for years to come. Also, don't forget to check out our socials. 12. Jumping if an elevator's falling. We've all seen a movie when an elevator fails and plummets down to the ground. In that moment, there is no escape. But what's the best thing to do to maximize your chances of survival? Some say that jumping at the last second will soften the impact. That is technically true, but you would need to have the vertical jump of a professional athlete and the timing of a stopwatch to pull it off. Even if you did, falling from multiple stories of a building will still likely lead to death. But there is another strategy. According to an MIT engineer, lying flat on the elevator floor will help distribute the impact over your entire body equally. That's good news for me. I'd probably be on the floor anyway after passing out from fear. I hate heights. 11. Hide under a bridge in a tornado. You cannot outrun a tornado. Instead, find somewhere to hide and avoid getting swept away. One survival myth that's been circulating for years has been to seek shelter underneath a bridge or an overpass. That would be a massive mistake. Extreme winds from a tornado easily get concentrated underneath overpasses and would carry you off into the air. On top of that, this position puts you at risk of being hit by flying objects. A better idea is to find a basement, the lowest floor of hospitals, schools, or malls. At least in a hospital, you're in the right place should anything go wrong. 10. Wasp spray works against bears. A bear is running straight toward you, a killing machine weighing thousands of pounds. There aren't many options to ensure your survival, and you only have a few moments to make a decision. Having bear spray on hand is ideal, but if you don't, there are other chemicals effective against bears. Contrary to popular belief, wasp spray isn't one of them. It doesn't contain capsaicin, the key ingredient that makes bear sprays effective. Bears are simply too big to be affected by chemicals designed for insects. And you aren't winning a foot race with a bear either. Instead, you're gonna have to muster up all your courage, stand your ground, make some loud noises, and pray that it gets scared off. Also, more importantly, bears aren't wasps. I feel like that goes without saying. 9. Life jackets are only for inexperienced boaters. In the open ocean, there are very few universal laws, but safety is one of them. Many people think that life jackets are only needed if boaters have little experience in the water. That's a complete myth. All boaters should have life jackets on board. Accidents can happen to anyone, and the weather can change in an instant. And for God's sake, always make sure there are enough life jackets on board. Haven't you seen Titanic? 8. The triangle of life. For more than 30 years, a deadly myth has circulated about what to do in case of an earthquake. The so-called triangle of life strategy was spread through the news, TV, and chain emails, telling people to crowd around a big object, forming a kind of triangle. But the triangle of life is not just a myth, it's an incredibly dangerous one that may have caused many deaths. The standard device to drop cover and hold on has been proven to be the most effective. Putting yourself near loose objects out in the open is just asking for trouble. 7. Opening your windows during a storm relieves air pressure. I've talked a lot about what to do out in the open against a tornado, but what if you're already inside? It's a good start, but no matter what you do not open the windows. There's a myth swirling around that this somehow equalizes the pressure and prevents the glass from breaking. In reality, all it does is open up your house to extreme winds for things to fly around. Like Harry Potter and the letters. 6. Running in a zigzag pattern confuses alligators. Okay, we've dealt with the bear. Now imagine you're being chased by an alligator. First of all, this is not your day. Clearly you need to run away, but in which direction exactly? For a long time, the tactic was thought to be moving in a zigzag pattern because alligators have trouble changing directions. If you tried this in real life though, you'd quickly find out that it only makes it easier for an alligator to catch you. Running in a straight line is much safer. Believe it or not, humans are much faster than alligators on land. And gators rarely stay dry for long before heading back to the water. So no need for a complicated football play to get away from an alligator, just run as fast as possible away from the water. 5. Herbivores are safe to approach. Just because an animal won't eat you for food doesn't mean that it's safe to approach. Gorillas, wild boars, rhinoceros, and hippopotami are all herbivores, but can still be incredibly dangerous. Just like humans, if they feel their land or family is threatened, herbivores can get aggressive. It's just like how being a vegetarian doesn't mean you aren't violent. I mean, come on, haven't you heard of a guy named Adolf Hitler? He was a vegetarian. 4. Jumping into water during a bee attack. I don't think anything could sound more scary than a bear or alligator attack, but this next one might be. Haha. A swarm of bees covering your body, stinging any piece of exposed skin and chasing you away. But where should you be running? If no shelter is in sight, a body of water might look pretty appealing. Underwater, the bees shouldn't be able to sting you, right? Well, the problem is that they're patient. Bees will hover above the water waiting for you to emerge again. And as soon as you come up for air, your face will be stung. And in the chaos, you might accidentally inhale water, or worse, inhale bees that can then sting you from the inside. I told you it sounded worse than a bear attack. This is really not your day. My goodness. 3. A hot bath helps hypothermia. You might think that someone suffering from hypothermia just needs to be warmed up. Yeah, that's the right idea, but there are tragically wrong ways to go about it. Heating your body up too quickly can be fatal. If your body is put in a hot water bath during hypothermia, it can cause low blood pressure, heart problems, and even serious burns. Instead, using blankets and warm clothes is the right way to warm up slowly and safely. 2. Levees and dams guarantee protection against floods. Levees and dams are both used to minimize the risk of flooding in an area. Levees are huge walls stopping water levels from getting too high, while dams store huge amounts of water and release them downstream at strategic times. These work most of the time, but they still can't stop extreme weather, earthquakes or landslides from causing flooding in a city. The moral of the story? nature always wins. 1. Take shelter in a doorway during an earthquake. Once upon a time, it was common knowledge that the best place to be in a house during an earthquake was underneath the doorway. The idea came from a number of images taken in the aftermath of earthquakes, where only a doorframe remained standing. This was partly true for some older wooden framed houses. However, in general, this belief is wrong and puts you in even more harm's way. For most structures, the doorway is no stronger than any other part of the house. Plus, it puts you in the way of loose objects that can move around and hit you. Stop, drop, and cover if you want to avoid meeting a dark fate. Okay, so I've covered some pretty sad scenarios, but don't worry, I've got plenty more. Like, did you know that the Curiosity rover on Mars played itself happy birthday on its first anniversary? That might have been the loneliest party in our solar system. Or how about ferrets? For them, dating is a game of life and death. If a female fails to find a mate, it can literally weaken their body until they die. So, if you feel like learning some fascinating facts that aren't really for the faint of heart, click here.